Recently, in Jiangyou City, Sichuan Province, a young woman was bullied, and the Chinese Communist Party, CCP authorities' failure to act sparked a large-scale public protest. The government deployed a massive special police force to suppress the demonstration, leading to clashes between the two sides. Many protesters were beaten and arrested. The incident has drawn the attention of overseas observers. Some believe that public discontent is like a minefield, ready to explode at any moment. The authorities' repression will only further undermine the regime's legitimacy and expose the CCP's fragility. While public protests may be the biggest wild card in society, fierce infighting among four factions within the party is also fueling an inevitable change. Stay tuned as we explore this in today's program. 14-year-old girl in Sichuan brutally bullied, thousands of protesters suppressed. Recently in Jiangyou, Sichuan Province, a 14-year-old girl named Li Jinghan was dragged by peers to an unfinished construction site, forced to remove her clothes, verbally humiliated, and beaten by a group. The attackers later posted videos of the abuse online, sparking widespread public outrage. According to Epoch Times reports on August 4th and information circulating online, the girl's mother is hearing impaired, and the victim has been frequently bullied in the past. The bullies had previously been taken to the police station, but because they were all minors, they were quickly released without punishment. Arrogantly, they even taunted the victim. "Do you think we're afraid of you? Haven't we been arrested before?" They had reportedly been detained over a dozen times, but each time released after just a few days. After this latest video surfaced, the victim's family repeatedly pressed the authorities to act, but officials delayed for days without taking any action. One source claimed that among the bullies was the child of a local official. Under mounting public pressure, on August 4th, local police issued a statement saying that the victim had been assessed as having only minor injuries, and that two of the attackers had received an administrative penalty, while the others were merely given criticism and education. That same day, a large crowd gathered at the Jiangyou government headquarters, demanding justice for the girl. A witness estimated that several thousand people were present. The victim's parents and uncle were also there. The hearing-impaired mother, unable to speak, and the illiterate father knelt on the ground together, their small figures almost pressed to the pavement, pleading for the most basic fairness. At first, Jiangyou officials engaged with the public, even bringing protesters into the government hall for discussions. But later, Jiangyou City, which administers Jiangyou, dispatched a massive force of special police, estimated at over 1,000 officers, to violently disperse the crowd. Video footage shows many protesters being arrested at the gates of the Jiangyou government building. Authorities openly loaded them into livestock transport trucks to take them away. The police violence further enraged the crowd. That night, protesters regrouped, singing, chanting slogans, and confronting the police. In the midst of the chaos, someone shouted, "Step down, Communist Party! Step down, Xi Jinping!" Around midnight, authorities began clearing the scene with force. The crowd fought back, throwing stones, water bottles, and other objects at the police. At least dozens of protesters were arrested on the spot. Does this scene look familiar to you in China? China is full of hidden landmines. Political and economic commentator Qin Peng, now living in the United States, told the Epoch Times that after years of CCP repression, many Chinese people have become indifferent to what happens around them, adopting the mindset of, "If it doesn't concern me, I'll stay out of it." And some are even unwilling to help an elderly person who has fallen in the street. This time, however, those who stood up had no personal connection to the 14-year-old girl or her family. Their actions came purely from anger and conscience, condemning the authorities and demanding that the law be enforced properly. Yet the authorities responded by arresting and beating people, treating protesters like livestock, and locking them inside pig transport trucks, turning the very nature of the incident into something else entirely. Qin noted that the event has continued to escalate. The CCP sees any protest beyond its control as a threat to its rule, so it resorted to violent suppression, which only drew more people into the streets. Now, he said, the public's anger is directed squarely at the CCP regime itself. Such repression will only further undermine the regime's legitimacy and make more people realize that the CCP has lost any ability to correct society's wrongs. People have endured years of brainwashing, intimidation, and repression, but no one can predict where a major incident like this will suddenly erupt. Qin said, "It shows just how fragile this regime is. A single spark or tiny crack could bring everything down, and no one should be surprised when it happens." US-based current affairs commentator Tang Jingyuan told the Epoch Times that in recent years, school bullying in mainland China has been widespread, in some cases even more severe than this, with victims seriously injured or even killed. Yet none of those cases triggered the kind of public outcry seen in Jiangyou this time. This, he said, shows that Chinese society under CCP rule has become an extremely dangerous powder keg, piled high with dry tinder, where even the smallest spark could ignite a massive blaze. Prominent democracy activist Wang Dan, speaking on his YouTube program, said the speed and scale of the Jiangyou protests far exceeded most people's expectations. He compared it to the sudden eruption of the White Paper movement in 2022. In his view, this is because in recent years Chinese society has accumulated too much resentment over social injustice, the abuse of power by authorities, and the apathy of the system. These grievances, he said, are like landmines that could explode at any moment. The Jiangyou protesters were not professional activists or seasoned democracy advocates. They were ordinary citizens, and their anger did not stem from pursuing abstract ideals like democracy or freedom, but from a tangible, visceral sense of social injustice, and even a moral compulsion that they could remain silent no longer. Independent commentator Du Zheng wrote earlier this year in Taiwan's Up Media that within China there is a network, made up mainly of business people, some mid-level officials, and even police officers, who use secure communication apps to form discussion groups, and when possible, educate the Chinese public about democracy. Some participants in the White Paper movement have gone abroad, but others remain in China, waiting for the right moment. In the future, Du predicted, when China's political situation changes, they will certainly rise up to respond. Is China headed for inevitable change? Under mounting public pressure and amid increasingly fierce infighting within the Chinese Communist Party, political upheaval now seems unavoidable. The question is, will senior officials side with the people and act in accordance with the will of heaven? Will China take steps toward democracy, or will it remain stuck at a crossroads, unwilling to move forward? Commentator Tang Jingyuan, in his program, explained that there are currently 4 main factions vying for power within the CCP. What are these 4 factions? 1. The Red Mao faction. This group follows the revolutionary cultural line of Mao Zedong and Xi Jinping, prioritizing dictatorship over the economy and advocating extreme violence to maintain stability and ensure that the Red Empire never changes color. Xi Jinping leads this faction, supported by both the Xi camp and elements of the Jiang camp, such as Zheng Qinghong and Zhang Dejiang. Although weakened after Xi's loss of power, the faction retains influence through its second Red generation roots and shared blood debts. They remain united to keep Xi from fully stepping down, hoping to preserve a chance for him to make a political comeback. 2. The Political Reform faction. Represented by Wen Jiabao, Li Ruihuan, and Wang Yang, who seek to install Wang Yang in Xi's place. They advocate political reform as the only way out of China's current political and economic deadlock. While they currently lead at the highest decision-making level, they lack full autonomy. Since calls for political reform have always been a minority position within the party, they face strong opposition from the Red Mao faction, leaving them in a difficult position. 3. The Party Preservation faction. Represented by Hu Jintao, who hopes to elevate Hu Chunhua. They aim to correct Xi's economic missteps and his anti-US policies, but reject political reform. Their vision is a return to the Deng Xiaoping-era model under Hu and Wen, leaving politics untouched, quietly pursuing prosperity, and maintaining a relatively free speech environment to preserve stability. They agree with the Red Mao faction on protecting the party and with the reform faction on reversing Xi's mistakes, seeking a balance to keep party unity. However, as Tang notes, this is merely temporary reconciliation that does not solve core problems. For the military faction, strictly speaking, led by Jiangyou City with support from Liu Yuan, son of Liu Shaoqi. This group has no fixed political line and backs no specific successor. Their main demand: Xi Jinping must step down completely, with no chance of return. They want the military to retain relative independence and stay out of intra-party disputes. Zhang, who once nearly lost his life when the military was dragged into political struggles, now seeks to protect himself by keeping his distance from all factions. Tang says no faction holds absolute dominance. Each must ally with others to gain an advantage. The Red Mao faction staunchly opposes political reform, and due to intense personal animosity between Xi and Jiangyou City, can only ally with Hu Jintao's party preservation faction, united by their common goal of protecting the party. The reform faction and the military faction share the goal of removing Xi completely and preventing any return. Liu Yuan's openness to ideas like nationalizing the military also brings him ideologically closer to the reformists, making their alliance stronger and currently slightly advantageous. Though Hu Jintao appears isolated, he is actually the leader of the Youth League faction with considerable influence. His greatest asset is his status as a former party leader, giving him a key role in ensuring a legitimate transfer of power. There is now a broad consensus within the party. Any power transition should appear lawful and avoid revealing the reality of a large-scale coup. The model would be like Hua Guofeng's departure, stepping down for health reasons in a peaceful, stable transfer. Deng Xiaoping used a similar approach to quietly remove Hua over the course of 2.5 years. Without this consensus, Xi's removal would have been announced long ago. But this creates a problem. Hu's participation becomes crucial. If he refuses, the transfer could be seen as an act of treason and outright coup. If he agrees, it would be framed as a former leader correcting the current one, granting undeniable legitimacy to Xi's removal. While this legitimacy is ideal for ensuring a peaceful transition and avoiding party chaos, if the factions fail to reach consensus, especially from Jiangyou City's perspective, where personal safety is paramount, the former leader's blessing may no longer be essential. Zhang, a career soldier and battlefield veteran, has made clear that if the situation threatens his safety, he will not hesitate to send troops into Zhongnanhai, regardless of whether it is called a coup. For him, protecting his own life comes first. Tang notes that Zhang's recent military exercises near Beidaihe, while party meetings were underway, suggest that Xi is unlikely to step down halfway and keep a title. Whether Xi is removed at the 4th plenum or the 21st Party Congress, it is most likely he will be forced out completely. The biggest remaining question, and the main source of conflict, is between the party preservation faction and the reform faction. Will Wang Yang or Hu Chunhua take over? The answer hinges on the core issue: reform the political system or keep the party intact. Both camps have advantages, and for now they are evenly matched. The final outcome will depend on the military's stance, a decisive factor in determining whether the CCP survives in the post-Xi era. This is a delicate matter. Jiangyou City, uninterested in politics, only moved against Xi to protect himself after Xi reportedly planned to act against him. Had Xi not suffered a sudden stroke, Zhang might already be in Qincheng prison. As we've said many times, although the CCP proclaims the party commands the gun, at critical historical moments during major political crises, it is always the gun that commands the party. Whoever controls the military holds the final decision. So who will Jiangyou City back? Wen Jiabao, Li Ruihuan, or Hu Jintao? That choice could very well decide China's future path. For now, we can only wait and see. What do you think about China's road ahead? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you, and see you in the next program.